This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hope for progress in South Sudan peace process as President Salva Kiir meets opposition leader Riek Machar. Zimbabweans expect late President Mugabe's body on Wednesday as talks continue over his burial place. And British Parliament Speaker announces he'll step down amid Brexit chaos. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Karen Roberts, live in Nairobi. Ucha joins me now with all your business headlines.
Thank you, Karen. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Bits. Up to 1,700 flights cancelled as British Airways pilots go on strike. And no respite yet in Zimbabwe as an economic crisis deepens. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Ucha. We begin the bulletin in Burkina Faso's troubled north, where at least 29 people have been killed in two separate incidents. A truck transporting people and goods is said to have hit an improvised explosive device, leaving 15 passengers dead, most of them traders. In the second hit, 14 people lost their lives when their convoy carrying food to displaced people was targeted and attacked. Officials say military reinforcements have been deployed to the area. The West African country's army has also been increasingly targeted by rebels. The rebellion, which originated in neighbouring Mali, has left the country's government struggling to stop it spreading from the north to the east of the country. In Zimbabwe, the Information Ministry says a private jet carrying the body of Robert Mugabe back home departed from Harare on Monday and is expected to return on Wednesday. However, the ministry has not said where the late leader will be laid to rest amidst reported divisions between his family and the government. CG10's Farai Mwakatuya reports now from Harare.
Zimbabweans will be given a chance to pay their last respects to their leader of 37 years on Thursday and Friday at a local stadium, ahead of a state funeral ceremony to be attended by foreign heads of state on Saturday. Burial is set for Sunday the 15th. What's not clear is whether it will be on that hilltop where national heroes are buried or in Mugabe's rural village. Consultations are ongoing between government and the Mugabe family over where he'll be laid to rest, a location which is hugely significant given the manner in which he was forced out of power.
Where he is buried may reflect the politics in Zimbabwe, whether we remain polarized or not. It really matters because if Mugabe is not buried at the national shrine where heroes are buried, then it is a show of lack of confidence in the leadership of Emmerson Mnangagwa. It is also a demonstration that we remain hugely divided. Even the ruling party itself may continue suffering from the fallout of where Robert Mugabe is buried.
But despite the reported tussle, the death of the iconic former leader, which has brought rare agreement between the ruling party and main opposition over his hero status, could be an opportunity to begin healing some of the hurt that characterized the latter years of his rule.
Are there any reflections on how Mugabe managed the affairs of this country that we need either to take forward or that we need to drop? So for me, the demise of Mugabe is an opportunity for a much broader national reflection on the direction of this country, but also an opportunity to bury the issues that divided us.
Mugabe is credited with implementing a free education for all soon after independence, but is also criticized for the economic mismanagement which curtailed opportunities for the very people he had sought to empower. Farai Mwakatuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Moving now to South Sudan, where President Salva Kiir has been holding a meeting with the exiled opposition leader Riek Machar in the capital city, Juba. The meeting was to discuss last year's peace deal. Regional negotiators say that the accord has yet to be implemented due to a lack of meetings between the two. The 2018 peace deal ended a 5-year civil war that killed tens of thousands, uprooted millions and devastated the economy. Machar is accompanied by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemeti, who is now a member of the ruling Sovereign Council in neighbouring Sudan. Machar and Kiir have not been seen together since they met in April. The deadline to form a unity government is a little over a month from now. That's the 12th of November. Sudan's first cabinet since the ouster of President Omar al-Bashir has been sworn in as the country transitions to civilian rule. It follows nationwide protests that overthrew the autocrat. The 18-member cabinet is led by Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and includes 4 women. They took oath at the presidential palace in Khartoum. The cabinet is expected to steer the daily affairs of the country during a transition period of 39 months. The lineup was formed after Sudan last month swore in a sovereign council, a joint civilian military ruling body that aims to oversee the transition. The 18 ministers were seen greeting members of the Sovereign Council, including its chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, in images broadcast by state television from the palace. The council itself is the result of a power-sharing deal between the protesters and the generals, who had seized power after the army ousted Bashir in April. Well, following the swearing-in of the interim cabinet, Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry visited Khartoum. Shoukry met with Prime Minister Hamdok and the head of the Sovereign Council, Burhan. CGTN's Adel El Marhouhi joins us now live from the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Adel, Cairo enjoys strong relations with the military council. How is Cairo likely to relate with a civilian government in Sudan?
Well, Cairo has rushed immediately to congratulate the new interim cabinet led by Abdallah Hamdok. The Egyptian foreign minister, Sameh Shoukry, has become the first foreign official to visit Sudan right after the official inauguration of the cabinet. And it is a quite clear indication about how keen Egypt is to approach to the civil powers. Of course, the ties, as you've mentioned, between Cairo, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and the Sudanese Military Transitional Council has been apparently strong since day one, since the ouster of President Omar al-Bashir. There have been some tension, or at least less welcoming spirit from the Sudanese civilian powers towards Egypt. And it's why Cairo has been quite speedy and adamant to move quickly and try to open a new page to have a more friendly and strong ties with the civilian power in Sudan, which represents about 50% of the authority in the Sovereign Council. So Egypt doesn't really want to take sides against anyone within Sudan.
And Adel, why is this relationship so important for Egypt?
Well, first of all, the proximity and the common neighborhood border between both Egypt and Sudan. To Egypt, Sudan is a crucial partner, not just in terms of security and to maintain stability in a country that shares a long border with, but also in terms of future development. In his speech today to the cabinet and Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry stressed that to have development in the region and to have development in Egypt, it is key to have similar process and similar development in Sudan. And the two countries should be working to complement each other rather than compete. And that's the attitude Cairo has approached Sudan with. There have been already numerous agreements that have been signed and were in process during President Omar al-Bashir's leadership to the country. Cairo wants to make sure that these projects are continuing. There's a massive project to connect the electricity, to connect connect the railroad between both countries, through which Sudan will have to change the infrastructure of its railroad facilities. So there is a huge progress, and there's a big vision to have open trade between both countries and free movement for the citizens of both nations. And development and good ties with the cabinet and the military council is quite crucial to Egypt to achieve that.
And Adel, finally widening it out a bit to other countries in the north of Africa, how are they reacting to the composition of Sudan's government?
And the Gulf countries. They all support seeing and witnessing an independent Sudan. To them, Sudan has remarkably achieved political consensus within just few months, while other countries in the region have sunk in civil war after similar demands for change within their nations. And that's why there is a sort of a consensus within the Arab League member states to support Sudan by all means. We're not seeing polarization taking place between rival Arab countries as we've seen in Syria, in Yemen, or in Libya. It appears that Sudan is enjoying the support of all parties, and none of the Arab League's member states want to see another troubled country in the region. That's why there's this sense of support, and Arab countries have also vowed, along with Egypt, of course, to cooperate with international powers to make sure that Sudan is quickly lifted from the international terror list as a state hosting or a state supporting terrorism. And it is a move that everyone within the Arab League wants to see happening soon, so that it will guarantee massive economic reform that the country desperately needs.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That was CGTN's Adel El Mahrouhi there for us in Cairo following the swearing in of the interim cabinet in Sudan. Moving on to other news now. It's been a very busy day in the British Parliament. John Bercow has announced that he will step down as Speaker by the 31st of October. That's the same day Britain is set to leave the EU. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is making another attempt to have an election in October. To make sense of what is going on today, let's now go live to London and speak to CGTN's Richard Bestick. Richard, where do we start? Let's start with some breaking news, or at least 2 hours ago. The Speaker is stepping down. What's behind all of this?
Well, let's put into perspective what John Bercow, the Speaker, is. His job is to protect Parliament and members of Parliament against the executive being, in this case, the government of Boris Johnson. And his resignation, or the announcement of his resignation by October the 31st, significantly the day Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of 6 weeks in Britain, says